So can you just crystallise that idea that you wanted to move forward so that we can think about it maybe in a different way?
Yeah, it's still forming for me, so I don't really know, but there is something that I need to move forward. We've just finished a really important and really positive piece of work, and I'm thinking about the best way that we can share that with other people in a way which is really appropriate and in a way that they find interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm taking from the conversation we've had so far that although you've thought about a number of different options from your own perspective, it might be useful to get a wider sense of the possible ways forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking something that's a bit different, something that's a bit more creative than just emailing out the findings to people. Something's a bit, more interesting and things which are more in keeping with the, the ethic or the spirit of what we're trying to put out there.
I got it. Okay. Yeah. So what I'd quite like to do is try something a bit different in terms of giving you some broader insights into where you could go with this as an idea. Yep. Are you happy to go with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So sometimes getting a creative sense or a sense of thinking of other people, from other people whose thoughts and opinions we might value, can be a useful way of thinking about moving something forward. Okay. And the way I'd like to do this is to ask you to think of 2 or 3 people whose opinions, views, thoughts, perspectives you might value on this particular topic. And we're going to try and metaphorically bring them into the room and give you a sense of the advice that they would give you. Okay, so just start to think about who those individuals might be. 2 or 3 people whose thoughts...
Do you mean people who would have a different way of doing this, or people whose... What do you mean?
So who might have a different way of doing it, and whose opinions you would value.
Okay.
But we're looking to get a bit of a creative input to this, so they can be as broad-reaching, as wide-ranging as you want.
Okay.
They might be people you know well.
Yep.
They might be people you know distantly, or who you know through other people. Or actually they might be people out there in maybe the media, in history, whose opinion or thoughts on this topic you might value just tapping into for a little while. Okay. So if we're looking for 2 or 3, have you got a couple in mind?
The first one that jumps up for me is an old mentor of mine called Marilyn.
Okay.
And she would always come up with some amazing idea of how to get an idea across. Okay. And she had absolutely no shame. Okay. So she would just put it out there and everyone would know about it. Okay. And they'd find it interesting. Okay,
so just for a minute, I'd like you to think about metaphorically bringing Marilyn into the room and in fact kind of adopting the persona of Marilyn, becoming Marilyn.
Oh God.
For a minute.
So choose the wrong person there.
How might Marilyn sit, for example, and what would she...
Well, she always had her arms crossed, so she'd probably sit like this, and she's always flamboyant with her movements and that sort of thing, but she'd usually sit a bit like this. Okay,
so really become Marilyn as much as you possibly can.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that working for you?
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. I can become Marilyn.
Okay, so imagine you're Marilyn, and imagine Andrew's sitting over here in front of you.
Okay.
Marilyn, what advice would you give Andrew around this topic?
Well, I think I'm being Marilyn. Yeah. Okay, so I think that you should just absolutely just get your idea out there. I think you should tell everybody what you know. I don't think you should be worried what they think too much. I think you should absolutely just get the message out and just keep saying it as much as you possibly can. And, whatever they think is fine, but you at least know that you've told them what you think.
Okay. And what else would you tell Andrew, Marilyn?
I'd tell him to trust his intuition, go with what he feels is right. Yep. Okay, and one piece of advice, maybe crystallising that, or maybe something that's occurring to you as Marilyn, as you're saying this, I want you to deliver it directly to Andrew. Okay, so Andrew, I think you really need to trust what you think's right with this, but I don't think you should be too backward in coming forward. I think you should be very open about just telling everyone what you think about this.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So let's leave Marilyn, or
Yep.
let Marilyn go.
Yeah.
So you were thinking of 2 or 3 people
Yeah.
to bring in. So back to Andrew for a minute, but
Yep.
think about somebody else that you can adopt the persona of for a minute in order to think as they would think.
Okay. The other one that I would that comes to mind easily is another old mentor of mine, a teacher or someone I worked with for many years, but he taught me a lot. His name's James.
Yep. Okay. So can you sit as
Yep.
James?
James would always sit with his legs crossed like this, in some kind of weird position, like this probably.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So you're
Very
feeling
intellectual about it.
Okay.
Yes.
So really want you to get connected to how James would be feeling, what he'd be thinking.
Okay.
And as you're imagining being James, then
Mhm.
imagine Andrew over here in front of
Mhm.
you. What advice, James, would you give to Andrew around this topic?
I think you have to be very strategic about it. You need to be thinking about the impact of whatever you do, so that you're planning things ahead. So you make whatever you do now, you need to really think about the impact of that as it moves forward. You should be thinking 3 steps ahead of whoever you're trying to communicate to. I'd say that you need to really be accurate. You need to be sure of what you're saying. You need to make sure there's evidence to back up whatever you're suggesting. Yep.
I'm just wondering how easy this is for you or how comfortable you're feeling with this as a process.
James or Andrew?
Andrew.
Andrew. It's okay. It's good.
Yeah, it's working.
Useful. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm really feeling into where the other one would be coming from.
Okay, so we need to leave James now.
Okay.
And we're going to try and get the third person. Was there somebody else you had in mind? Maybe completely left field.
Yeah, well, okay. So great communicators. I would imagine. Oh no, no one's coming to mind. Let me think. Barack Obama.
Okay.
Just came to mind.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So you'd like to tap into Barack Obama's thoughts, opinions, perspectives
Or the way he
around
would do it.
Or the way he'd do
Yeah.
it. Great.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So can you imagine how he might be sitting?
Not really. I've never really studied him, but for some reason I thought of him.
Yeah.
He'd probably be sitting very straight and.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Great. So just try and connect with the perspectives that you think he'd offer and the thoughts that you think he might.
I think he'd be very considered,
Mm-hmm.
very sincere with the communication.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have had a research team really following through on the impact of different ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as Obama now,
Yeah.
Andrew's here in front of you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to Andrew?
I'd say make sure that you really communicate the benefit of what you're doing, that people really need to understand how it impacts on them. They need to understand what in this case, the savings or the investment, what that might look like and how that might really make a difference. So it'd be the focus on really how do you make a difference with it.
Okay. I'm wondering what else.
Be sincere. Be really honest about what you can do with that.
Okay. Great. Okay. So we've had the 3 people in the room.
Yeah.
As Andrew, you've heard the 3 pieces of advice.
Yeah.
So back now to Andrew and back
okay.
now to the moment.
Yeah.
What have you heard in terms of the advice, the perspectives from those 3 individuals?
I think I was hearing, 3 quite different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
One was really around strategy and being very accurate, knowing what you knew. Another part being very much flamboyant and sort of getting the idea out as much as you possibly can and really trusting your intuition that you know what's right. And the other one about being sincere and communicating benefit.
Okay.
So that's really helpful actually to see those different points of view.
Okay. And as you let those different points of view kind of filter through and establish in your mind, what's your consolidated picture of what you're going to do now?
I think it would be really useful to spend some time reflecting on those different points of view, and to look at what kind of way forward there might be, incorporating this idea of being really sincere and being really good at communicating the benefit to people, which is done in a way which is absolutely accurate based on evidence, but it's not shy.
Okay.
So something about really balancing up that part of it as well, some part which is really positive about the benefit.
Great. So I'm hearing something about reflection.
Yep.
Tempted just to ask you in terms of a conclusion around this, what's the greatest insight that you had from those considerations that we've just brought into?
A big part around trusting my intuition.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.